Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nova Alden Fadila and I'm from Nsdc Senior High School, Jakarta. Good evening, honorable adjudicator, respected members of the proposition, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. Today I stand firmly as the opposition team to reject the motions that Indonesia should adopt a student loan mechanism. Ladies and gentlemen, education is a basic right, not a lifetime financial burden. At first glance, student loans may appear to be a helpful solution for students who struggle to afford higher education. Supporters often argue that loans increase access to universities and help students achieve better futures. However, behind that promise lies a dangerous reality: debt, financial pressure, social inequality, and long-term economic burdens for young generation. Countries that heavily rely on student loans, such as the United States, are currently facing massive student debt crisis involving millions of graduates. Indonesia should learn from those problems, not repeat them. Today I will present three major arguments. First, student loans create long-term financial burdens for students. Second, student loan system may worsen social inequality. Third, Indonesia is not fully prepared economically and institutionally to implement such a system effectively. Let us begin with the first argument. Student loans create long-term financial burdens. Ladies and gentlemen, most students enter university at a very young age. Many are only 17 or 18 years old when they must decide whether to take loans. At that age, many students now do not fully understand long-term financial responsibilities. However, after graduation, these loans do not disappear. Graduates may spend years, even decades, repaying debt while also struggling to pay for housing, transportation, healthcare, daily necessities, and family responsibilities. Instead of beginning adulthood with freedom and opportunity, many graduates begin their life trapped by financial pressure. Ladies and gentlemen, education should open doors for young people, not chain them to debt before they even build their careers. And the reality is that not every graduate immediately finds stable, high-paying jobs. In Indonesia, youth unemployment and underemployment remain significant issues. Many graduates still struggle to find jobs that match their educational backgrounds. If graduates cannot secure a stable income, loan repayment becomes extremely difficult and stressful. This may negatively affect mental health, productivity, and quality of life. Now let us move to our second argument. Student loans may worsen social inequality. Ladies and gentlemen, supporters claim student loans improve access to education. However, in reality, loans can discourage students from low-income families from entering university. Why? Because many students are afraid of debt. Poor families may hesitate to take financial risk because failure to repay loans could create even greater economic hardship. Meanwhile, students from wealthier families can attend university without worrying about repayment burdens. As a result, student loan system may actually increase inequality rather than solve it. Ladies and gentlemen, education should create equal opportunities, not deepen economic division between rich and poor. Furthermore, if higher education depends heavily on loans, universities may become more commercialized and expensive over time because in tuition, no student can borrow money to pay tuition fees. This has already happened in several countries with large student loan systems. Now let us move to our last argument. Indonesia is not fully prepared to implement student loan effectively. Ladies and gentlemen, a successful student loan system requires strong financial regulation, accurate income monitoring, stable employment opportunities, and effective legal system. Unfortunately, Indonesia still faces challenges in these areas. Many workers are employed in informal sector with unstable incomes. Many graduates do not immediately secure permanent jobs. Income data systems are not always fully accurate or organized. As a result, managing repayment fairly and effectively would become extremely difficult. There is also a risk of loan default, where borrowers cannot repay their debts. This could create financial problems both for students and for the government itself. Ladies and gentlemen, instead of adopting risky student loan system, the government should focus on safer and fairer alternatives such as scholarship, educational subsidies, lower tuition fees, and stronger public university funding. These solutions keep students access education without forcing them into long-term debt. The proposition may argue that student loans increase access to higher education. However, access without financial security is not true opportunity. Giving students debt is not the same as empowering students. Real educational support should reduce burdens, not create new ones. Ladies and gentlemen, education should inspire hope, ambition, and progress. Young people should graduate with dreams for the future, not fear of unpaid debt. Indonesia should build an education system based on accessibility and fairness, not financial pressure. For economic equality, for students' well-being, for financial security, and for a fairer future generation. This House firmly opposes the adoption of a student loan mechanism in Indonesia. Thank you very much.